Now, Charlie McConalogue was out in South Sudan in the last week, and he was there to announce an increase in Ireland's funding for the work of the World Food Programme. And when he was there, didn't he bump into a woman from Mount Charlotte, who is South Sudan's country director for the UN World Food Programme? Her name is Mary Ellen McGroarty, and she joins us now on the line for a chat and on Zoom as well. Mary Ellen, how are you?
Not too bad. Very well, thank you. Greetings from Juba, South Sudan.
Where's it? What's the name of the town again?
Juba.
Okay, in South Sudan.
Yeah.
And we were giving out buckets about the weather here because it's really cold and miserable, but we shouldn't really, should we?
We're just coming out the tail end of a heat wave for the last 2 weeks that resulted in schools and everything else being closed. Because, as you can imagine, many people here don't have air conditioning or the money to buy the fuel for the generators to put on the ACs. Schools don't have many facilities. So it's been pretty hot, but we had a little bit of rain now today. So it's cooling down a little bit.
Okay, so that'll help. Now, you're involved in the UN programme. You're the country director, in fact, and what you do is you give support to a lot of people in South Sudan, millions, in fact. So you have your hands full.
Yes, this year we're hoping to reach about 4.5 million people, and that's excluding what's happening with the war in Sudan. We've already seen over 620,000 people arrive from Sudan. Adding to that, the country has a population of 13 million people, and it's estimated that probably over 70% of the people, because of poverty, because of conflict, because of climate change, need some form of humanitarian assistance. So for us, it's about 4.5 million this year, despite the fact that there's 7 million food insecure. Of that, there's 300,000 children with school meals, another 400,000 people that we're trying to support through resilience projects, some of those projects that the minister saw when he was out here in South Sudan for St. Patrick's Day.
It's a mammoth task, and yet what you're doing, it's still a Band-Aid.
Yes, it is only a Band-Aid, and particularly in South Sudan, it's particularly challenging. We don't have much infrastructure. So there's very little road network. So what we're trying to do, so while most people welcome the rain today, I'm kind of pulling my hair out a little bit because I have to get food into remote areas before those roads become cut off. We move a lot by river. We move a lot by air. Also, security is quite a challenge. So it is in some parts of the country. So we're up against the clock now, and it is only a Band-Aid. What we really need to be doing is what we really need in South Sudan is development, government investment in basic services, infrastructure, support to people so that they can grow themselves, that they have livelihoods. But also we need peace right across the country. And that, if you look at some parts of the country where there has been relative stability, we've been able to scale back our operations. And in fact, this year I was able to close 2 offices, which is great, good news story. Because you don't need those big food assistance programs once people are able to get back to the land and back to their livelihoods.
So many African countries have so much going against them, and then you have to add in war and political instability, and it's the case not just in Sudan and so many other African countries, because there's you hear about droughts, and you hear about farming practices and abject poverty, but if there's political stability, there's some chance then to make lasting changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's some level of political stability and peace, I mean, you look at what's happened in Sudan over the last year, it's absolutely terrible and tragic what's happened. But also South Sudan, a country, the newest country in the youngest country, got its independence in 2011 and was sadly wrapped by civil war in 2013 that erupted again in 2016. 2018, they signed a peace agreement. So there is a little bit of peace, but they have a lot to build a nation. And then you also have the ravages of climate change. South Sudan for 4 years was, unprecedented flooding of the Nile River. They have great water resources, but they've been on the sharp end of climate change. 2 million people displaced from their homes because of that. And then the other side of the coin, you have parts of the country that have terrible, terrible drought. Agriculture production there is potential, but the yields are way down. They need investment in agriculture. And in fact, when the minister was here, we brought him out to a cattle camp, and they were talking about, the milk yields that they get from the cattle here compared to what we're getting in Ireland. It's numerous hundreds of percentage of differences, so they need, and you don't get investment and you don't get the financial investment unless you have stability, unless you have peace.
You've had a long and varied career with the UN, and it's a long way from Mount Charles to South Sudan. You served some time in Afghanistan and had to work with the Taliban there. That can't have been easy as a woman.
That was quite interesting. I went to Afghanistan in 2020. Didn't think a year later we'd be seeing the Taliban. Well, I suppose we knew they were coming back, but so soon to see them back in Kabul in August 2021. I suppose we'll all remember the 15th of August for different reasons. But yeah, it was interesting, I suppose. It's become a very sad place. You saw the 20 years of hope and promise just all disappear in 2 weeks, and even further as the Taliban started laying in their decrees around women working, around girls going to school. Girls are over the age of 12 are still out of school since March 2022. The second year of that now. So yes, as a woman, it was interesting, I suppose. For them, I'm already a lost cause, right? I'm out of the home. I'm away from my husband. I'm out traipsing around. Yeah, exactly. You're shaking
Terrible,
your head.
Yeah.
They can't see it on the radio, right?
Shocking.
But yeah, for them, I suppose I'm a thing. I'm not really a woman. So it was interesting. Yeah, you had cases where they don't look at you straight. You have to wear the scarf and everything else, and don't let them see your lovely Irish locks and things like that. But yeah, an interesting bunch. I think it's very sad in terms of what's happened, particularly for women and girls over the last 2 years since they have come back. While there's probably more stability, believe it or not, sort of the bittersweet bit of it, but certainly the situation for women and girls has deteriorated.
There's so many countries in crisis, and we don't often hear about them, and whether that's Chad or Burkina Faso or Gaza or we are hearing plenty about Gaza at the moment, but we don't hear much about South Sudan, and why is that? We're living in an age where we're living in the info age where information is easy got and we're bombarded with it. But why do we not hear more about the sort of crisis that you're dealing with daily?
Yeah, I think we've been. I suppose you have two, Ukraine and Gaza that have been taking up the news. I think it's where the media is, where the interest is. It is terrible because people, no matter where they are, if they have been upended by reasons of war and conflict and climate change through no fault of their own, they deserve our support, they deserve our assistance. Young children everywhere are the same, and that's one thing that I have learned in this work. It's all just a lottery of birth. You and I are of a very privileged and lucky generation of where and when we were born, right? In Ireland, and the access to education and everything we had. Many millions and millions of people across the world don't have that, and I think we have an onus on us all to be able to share some of the windfall that we got as a result of our birth.
And educate. You mentioned education there. That's key as well, isn't it?
Education, I think, when you look at where Ireland has come from, and what the difference education has made in Ireland, it is. For me, it's a thing that changes countries. It's a thing that the next generation coming up, they are the future of a country. And here in South Sudan, for example, there's over 2 million children out of school. And you do think some days, is it if we just focused on education, is that the one thing, the game changer? But I think we see from other countries, education is the game changer when it comes to development. If you have education, probably other things will pull themselves along. Huh?
You're involved in the food programme there, and scarce as food may be in many homes, is it true that in South Sudan that most families still want to share what they have with you when they come across you?
Of course, I mean the hospitality that you meet, and I mean when you just look at their hospitality over the last year with the war in Sudan. I mean over 610,000 people fleeing. I mean the communities are sharing the little they have, and even still at the moment they're going through a terrible economic crisis because Sudan also is, for South Sudan, their major pipeline for oil runs through Sudan. I mean, there's problems with that now, so they're not getting the oil revenue. So we're currently seeing the economy and the depreciation in the local currency. So we're seeing 30 to 40% increases in the prices of food. Now, you can imagine if you spend 75, 80% of your income on food, what a 30, 40% increase will do. But yeah, they're incredibly generous people, even when they have very little. And when you go out to see communities and everything else, they want you to sit down and they want you to share a meal with them.
From Afghanistan to the Congo and now to South Sudan, do you ever despair? Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, is there any end to this? How can we keep on doing this?
I think I don't necessarily despair, but I think what I've seen over the last, I suppose, to be over the last couple of months and what's going on in the Middle East, I think it makes you think, my goodness, is this where we are? We're the world has never been as wealthy. We've never had the media, the technology, and everything else, and we seem to be somehow going in reverse a little bit, and I think that's quite worrying. And thinking, how do we bring it back? That sense of global community, that sense of global humanity, and where is our intolerance for watching what we are seeing? And are we becoming, as the song says, comfortably numb to the pain and suffering of many others across the world?
And finally, Mary Ellen, do you manage to get home much?
Yeah. I mean, I was home there in January. Hopefully, get home in the summer again for the lovely sunshine that we do have in Donegal for a couple of hours.
You just come home to cool down.
No. Hopefully, get home in the summer. Yeah. I do get over back every couple of months, so it's always great to get home, catch up with the family, and get the good Atlantic gale on your face.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's vital work. It's life-saving work that you're doing, and with an organisation as big as the UN, absolutely making a real difference. And thanks for taking a wee bit of time out. I'm sure your day is incredibly busy, but thanks for having a wee chat with us. Appreciate
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Look after yourself.
Get with the best. Virgin Media